So what we're going to go do now is actually move into a panel discussion. And we would like everyone that actually has spoken as the speaker to all join the panel. And the panels are, again, Todd, Mark, Ravi, Martin, Gary, and Shaker. I don't think Will's actually here anymore. Will said he actually had a soccer game that he actually had to go watch. Now, that's a legitimate excuse for Will. So that's actually a pretty good one. Okay, so one of the things that we actually saw that actually promoted some thinking is people started to actually talk about the concept of smart supply chain, right? And also what we actually said is they actually are the need for an operating system. So self-organizing and self-optimizing production system is what we actually talked about. And based on all the technology that was actually promoted or actually that was discussed, it seems like there was two areas of focus that we actually saw. Again, just based on the topic that we're actually just talking, we put this together. There was some technologies that was working on the left side of the screen, which was the schedule. And what was someone actually that was actually thinking actually on the right side of the system. And as Mark correctly posed, the left side is the demand and right side is the actual transformation, which actually makes the production system work. And also some of the technology actually focused, as Todd actually mentioned, the automate, are you actually automating? Are you optimizing or innovating? And as Martin pointed out, it was the levels of digitalization. But that actually had brought up a very, very interesting question while talking, was if we actually change our view from the customers of these solutions being a human to a machine, so that the machines can automatically respond, how does the solution design start to look different? It's a question that I'd like to actually pose to the panel. If we actually, so if the terminology visualization, the blind spots, all these are actually not from a human perspective, but from a bot perspective and machine consuming perspective, how does solutions start to differ? Gary or Martin?
I mean, one thing I found, not a direct answer, but maybe to kick it off, are humans ready for it? At least a few cases that shouldn't name companies or names at this point. But we have had a few situations where the machines could have done that, but the humans were not ready to accept what the machine would do. So I think that's a little bit of a back to culture and mindset. I think it'll take us some time in construction, maybe the kind of people we have to accept, that control, right? We accept it when, somebody, Uber, the example has been brought up many times. The driver cancels, well, the system finds another driver, and or you change your destination. All of these things are, there isn't somebody in the background with a AAA map trying to figure out stuff, right? Like we still do, kind of, in our industry. So, at least in my experience, that's the sort of bottleneck today. We can envision it, but then when we actually have it, do we really like it?
James, I was going to add, if the consumer or the customer is some kind of automated device, robot, whatever the case may be, it can and most often needs to consume a lot more information a lot faster. And so I would think if you looked at a GPS map in the old rental car days, you would say, okay, I got the big idea here and down the road I'm going, versus what an autonomous vehicle would require in the way of the feedback and feed forward, including the LiDAR, GPS, and all the other stuff that's going on. And so I think the limitations, so where the human brain is very profound in some computational capabilities, some of which Anil is talking about, on the other side, those limitations are not the same for autonomous type vehicles and robotics.
So Gary, from your perspective as the solution architect, when you actually look at these solutions and when you actually talk about these automated equipments, I mean, does the focus actually change from a consumer perspective of, it's not a person that's going to actually read the schedule and try and actually look at the next step. It's actually a machine that's got to be automatically driven. How does that actually change how you design things?
Yeah, no, I think it applies to our business. I mean, the one thing that's never going to change for us is our customers won't go away. So we will have humans involved at some point in time. And to me, you start with your end customer and work backwards. If I look at kind of our strategy around what to focus on, it starts with the consumer first. As far as, repetitive tasks, those are already being automated today. I mean, we're using RPA to take people off keyboards. We're using, bots to respond to phone calls. So, it changes the dynamic around what the person does or the role of an operator in our business. So if you take autonomous trucks, it's going to be a while until autonomous vehicles can deliver into cities. It's going to take a while. So, the role of a driver for us, since we have like 9,000, 10,000 drivers, it will change over time. The role of a mechanic is changing right now. We're automating different activities in a shop. So, alleviating time on tool is a key metric, but it's changing the role of an operator. I don't think you're going to be able to automate every single function in a supply chain. It's just not feasible. But what I do think it's doing right now, and it's going to accelerate, is the mundane, repetitive tasks. Those are the first things that are going to go. I mean, they're already going now. The more complicated tasks, it's going to take a little while. And that is a function of how complex the supply chain is, right? It's pretty hard to get to AI, if you're trying to navigate across 300 different systems and your data is not normalized. Right. And so I think the path around true automation will be constrained by your data management strategy. But, the mundane tasks, the repetitive tasks, those are getting automated now. And even before you automate, my view is you simplify and eliminate, because we're doing a lot of things that don't make sense today. So you start there, and then you digitize and automate and optimize. And so we're kind of on that journey now. I think it depends. I don't think you're going to get rid of all humans.
No.
I just think it changes the role of a supply chain or logistics professional. And it should, right? We should not be spending 50% of our time on phone calls or trying to collect data to do something with it, right? And those are the things that are going to change.
Right. Yeah, I think that the humans actually, as the demand for the supply chain services will continue to be there, I think it's the service providers themselves that actually are either automating the current practice or actually innovating to actually achieve competitive advantage, right?
Yep.
So the things like, were we actually ever ready for a smartphones? No, but now everybody has one, right? So it's that kind of analogy. Anything you actually want to add? Anyone else? Shaker or Ravi?
Yeah. So I think I think Gary and others said, right? First of all, I think acquiring the data and normalizing it, making sure it's truthful becomes the foundation for these things, right? I think there are isolated areas in the bigger processes that are getting automated, and the way we are automating that is typically, we are doing a baby steps in terms of building models, but confounded by the humans, like human assisted kind of automation, right? And then you deploy that slowly, it becomes like, a transition over to a full automation. So that's how the entire system will become automated by, piece by piece. That way we think is the low value but high number of operations we are doing kind of thing, and then they'll go away, they get automated, and that's how and the entire system slowly get to that. And it will always be human assisted. Even today, even the autonomous vehicles, when we drive, we still kind of put some features in place, and we watch it, we monitor it, get the confidence, and then we switch it over, right? I think it is in the direction, and then the amount of the data we get, amount of even the data, how correct it is, has to be, operated on in terms of, every piece of data comes in is not correct. You need to take multiple data points, and you say, hey, is there truthful to truth? Is this correct? So I think we are pretty much installing these processes wise. We are installing validation processes through humans, through multi checkpoints, and I think we'll get there. But it's going to be a slow process.
I think so having been like an insider working in the companies, I feel like all decisions are driven by greed or by fear, right? So if the fear of something going bad is like bigger, then automatically I think, or if the pain is big, then I think like people will be more susceptible to change in those areas. Think about basically where do we see the best use cases for real-time visibility and tracking and tracing? When there's a huge financial audit, or basically there's a large scale lawsuit or compliance issue, then you're forced to basically understand what went on in that problem space. That's the dark spot. And basically that gets digitized, that gets automated. I think if you pick those areas where your biggest pain is, and you have to just keep asking yourself, is the juice worth the squeeze? And where do I first get into the system, right? I think that's the entry point of where you begin processing some of these things. And I think that will actually drive the adoption. The other one is obviously greed. If the financial benefit of doing something is astronomically big, then you are motivated to do that, right? So in that case, basically it could be either a revenue recognition problem, or it is basically profitability, and the profitability is so huge that the change management is much smaller in context, and then I think you get quick adoption on those things. And that's where I've seen a lot of either robotic adoptions, or think about customer service and customer care calls, right? It's one of those pain points that you'd never want to deal with, and you want to just automate the heck out of it. So I think you see adoption there, and I agree with everyone that basically it's always going to be human in the loop systems. And until we build the confidence, I think it's going to continue to be, and I think the degree of human in the loop changes by process too.
Yeah, so there are a few other questions, but due to the time limitations, we'll actually pose these questions to the panel, and then we'll actually get back to the questionnaires. Okay, so thank you, everybody, especially the panelists that actually have joined today to present your views and provide us insights.